Hello everyone, welcome to Tripp Advisor. Time once again for another Tabletop Tuesday board game review tutorial. As the summer weather is upon us here in Northern Ontario, I thought for the next couple of months I'm going to be pulling some games off the shelf and reviewing them, especially those that have summer themes or for whatever reason remind me of summer, or I simply play more through the summer months. So for the next 3 weeks I'm going to be walking through a family of games, the Azul family of games by designer Michael Kiesling. So today I'm going to take a look at the original Azul game. Next week I'll take a look at the second Azul release, the Stained Glass of Sintra, and then in a couple weeks we'll look at the third and final Azul family game, Summer Pavilion. These Azul games are abstract strategy games, so let's take it to the table. I'll walk through a brief sort of tutorial, give you an idea of how the game works and what it looks like, and you can come back up and join me. I'll give my report card and my final thoughts. So why don't you pull up a seat at the table for Azul. All right, here's the setup for Azul. I'm simulating a two-player game today. The game does play 2 to 4 players. So I've got 2 player mats, depending on the number of players around the table. You'll want to give each player one of these player mats. And you want to have, within reach of all players in the central area of the table, a number of these factories. The game comes with 9 of these circles, which are your factories. In a 2-player game, you'll only need 5 of them, as we have here. In a 3-player game, you'll want 7 of them. And in a 4-player game, the maximum player count for Azul, you'll need to use all 9 of them. The game also comes with a bag and a number of colored tiles. You see I've already laid out some colored tiles here. You're going to put all of the tiles in the bag, regardless of player count. You're going to use them all. And to set up, you're going to blindly draw 4 tiles out of the bag, putting 4 on each of the factories, which we've already done here. You also want to give each player one of these black scoring tokens. These cubes, that starts on the number 0 on your player mat, and you'll be progressing after each round. You will score each round and you'll move your token appropriately up the scoring track. The last thing for setup is you'll place this starting player token in the middle between all of the factories, and more on that in a few minutes. The ultimate goal and the objective in Azul, it is a point-based game, so the player with the most points at the end of the game will win. You're going to be accumulating a number of these various tiles from different factories, of which you're going to eventually place on your scoring board here, getting points for each one that's placed, but every time they are joined adjacent to one another, you can score more points, and there's bonus points at the end of the game for every column you're able to construct on your player mat, every row, and if you're able to get all of one color covered on your playing mat, that's worth bonus points as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simulate at least one round of the game just to give you an idea of the game flow. It's not a difficult game to set up. It's not a difficult game to learn, but there is some thinking and some strategy involved in this abstract strategy game. So randomly you can select starting player. Let's say we got the player here on the left who's going first. They will simply grab all of the same color from one of the 5 factories of their choice. In this case, there's one factory that has 3 of the same colors. There's a little snowflake symbol here, as we call it. So let's say he decides to take all 3 of these. So he will take those. Any tiles that are left untaken from the factory now get pushed to the middle. And so that red one will now be pushed into the middle, and all the tiles in the middle now become an option for subsequent turns as well. And so now I have 3 of these snowflake tokens in hand, and I can put them either in row number 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. If I choose to put them in row number 1, I can only fit 1. That means I've actually wasted 2, and I need to put any broken tiles or wasted tiles that won't fit. I need to put them down here, scoring negative points at the end of the round. So obviously that would not be a good idea. In this case, maybe I'll fill my 3rd row here. So I will place all the snowflakes in my 3rd row. That means at the end of the round, when the round is complete, any complete row here on the left side, you will slide it across and place it on the corresponding spot in that row. but I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. So that is simply one turn. And now player 2 will take his or her turn. And so let's say player 2 wants to take 2 of these sort of orangish yellow color. Again, sliding the ones that are left. You can only take all of the same color off the factory. I'm taking the 2 orange, sliding the other 2 into the middle, and perhaps I'll place those in my 2 slot there. Back to player 1. Player 1 decides to do likewise. Grab 2 yellow, sliding the others into the middle, and filling the second row as well. Back to player number 2. Now let's say player number 2 wants to be the starting player next time, doesn't want to play last every round. At any time, the first person to draw from the middle, so let's say player 2 here wants to draw these 2 snowflakes from the middle. Because they're the first one to take from the middle, they also get the starting player token. Of course, the benefit of that is they get to go first next round, first opportunity, if there's one of 3 or 4 of the same color. The downside is they will put that in their bottom row here, giving them a -1 at the end of the round. But let's say player 2 decides to do that. They take these 2 snowflakes, and let's say they want to put those in their 4th slot. They've got room. I should say too, because they've started snowflakes on this row, they have to continue with snowflakes. So if they took 2 yellow per se, they can't put 2 yellow here beside those 2 snowflakes because they've already started that particular pattern on that particular row. And so they're half complete there. And so that they would take the starting token. Back to player 1 here now. And the other thing is you kind of want to keep an eye on where you're building here, knowing that this yellow's been complete, which will go here. You may want to try and double up and have some adjacent or close together on your board. That's one of the key strategies. And so maybe in this case, now there's no penalty going to the middle. They simply take this 1 red from the middle and place it in the top spot there. Back to player number 2. There's no more snowflakes to grab, unfortunately. So maybe player 2 wants to take these 2 yellow, seeing there's a 3rd yellow there, put those in the 3rd row, moving these 2 colors into the middle. Now back to player 1. Player 1 sees, so player 1 could do a number of things here. Player 1 could see, this is where the watching what the other player or players are doing comes into play. Recognizing that this player probably wants to get that last yellow, they could take the yellow to cut off that supply line, because anything that's left incomplete at the end of the round has to stay on the board, leaving less space for development and potentially getting caught with some extra ones in the next round. However, 1 yellow doesn't really do much for player 1, so maybe player 1 will scoop up the only 2 available together, 2 blue, placing those perhaps in row number 4. And then back here now, of course, player 2 sees the opportunity to complete the number 3 with another yellow. That pushes the remainder of the tiles into the middle. And now player 1 decides to grab a blue, because if player 1 were to start a 5 and then player 2 were to take the blue, that means it would come back to player 1 and they would have no room for these blacks. They don't have to put them on the bottom. So you kind of got to think ahead what's going to be left the next time round. So in this case, it would be beneficial for player 1 simply to take that 1 blue, add it to the 2 blue they've already started here in the 4th row. Back to player 2 now, who decides, again, they've started snowflakes, which is right on top of the black. So maybe they'll go for the 2 black, starting their 5 spot here, leaving the 2 red, coming back to player 1. And so that is the conclusion of 1 round when all the tiles have been exhausted from the factories and from the center spot. That concludes the round. And then we score what has been completed for that round. So in this case, you always start from the top, working your way down. Everything that's completed gets slid over. So obviously the top, needing only 1 tile, is complete. So that gets slid over there, and that's simply 1 point for one tile, not adjacent to any other. So that would be 1 point here for player 1. And then this yellow tile is already complete. That gets slid over there. Because there are now 2 tiles that are adjacent, that would score 2 more points. And then the snowflake as well is completed, so they will slide that over. Diagonal doesn't count, it has to be above or beside, so that's simply worth 1 point. They did not complete level 4 here, the 4th row. There's still 1 more blue to be acquired. Likewise, in the 5th spot here, they need 3 more red. So those stay on the board. The ones that are completed will be cleared. The player 2 will then do likewise. They've completed number 2 for 1 point and number 3 for 1 point. They weren't able to complete anything else this round, and those stay on the board. Player 2 will take the starting player token, and then again, the next round, we'll fill the factories again, 4 tiles per factory. Player 2 will go first. As soon as they take their turn, they put the starting player token in the center, and we repeat the same process we've just started here. Let's say, just for the sake of showing how points are scored, let's say that the blue player, next round, they're able to get, let's say they're able to get 3 blue in the next round. And when they score that, this would be worth actually 5 points. They would get 3 for a column of 3, and then this blue would be scored again in combination with the snowflake here. So it would be 3 plus 2 for completing that. So you see how the scoring works. It accumulates the more you get together. The game continues back and forth. The game goes at least 5 rounds because the game ends when one player has completed 1 row. So to be able to complete 1 row, there needs to be at least 5 rounds because you can only complete 1 per round. The game sometimes goes 6 rounds or 7 rounds. And at the end of the game, you will not only continue to score after each round as we've done here, but you'll also add some of the bonus scoring here that is shown depicted on the bottom right of your player board. For every column that you're able to complete, so for example, let's say this player was able to complete this column by the end of the game, that would be worth a bonus of 7. You don't score those during the game, you score those at the end of the game. Every row that is completed in full is worth 2 points. And if you're able to plug the holes, all 5 colors at the end of the game, you get 10 points for that. The final thing I want to mention, very important, is as the game progresses, there's going to be more and more of your colors getting filled, which gives you less options for what you can start. For example, let's say later in the game in the 1 spot, these 3 colors have already been filled. Well, that means the only 2 color options that are available for player 1 here are the blue or the snowflake. That plays into the strategy as you bear in mind what is available to the other players. You can try and cut off those colors, forcing them to take tiles they can't use. And of course, every tile you can't use goes in your bottom row here, which will be negative scoring for you. That's basically 1 round. That's the rules. You continue on until when one player has completed a row. They just let the other players know, I'm completing a row this round. That means you complete that round. That will be the final round of the game. Add up the scoring at the end of that round, and the player with the highest score is the winner. And that's how you play Azul. All right, so that's Azul. I hope that little tutorial there gives you sort of a feel for the game, the look of the game, the flow of the game. One of the more popular abstract strategy games to come out in recent years. Let's just look at the report card, share some final thoughts on Azul. Let's start with theme, first of all. And the reality is this is an abstract strategy game, and if you played any abstract strategy games, those that have a sort of a deep, immersive theme are really few and far between. The reality is when I want a game with a deep theme, I've got other games on my shelf I can pull out, but when I want a good sort of medium strategy game with enough thinking, this is one of the go-to games that I go to, this along with the others in the Azul family. I don't buy games like this for the theme. The reality is there is a theme. It's kind of pasted on. It has ties to the historical Portuguese culture in which there were sort of intricate tiling being done in palaces and other places graces, and I guess you've been hired in the game to do such thing. But if you're just playing the game without me telling you that, you would never guess that that was sort of the theme. So it's kind of pasted on. It's there. It's not the strength of the game, nor is it what I'm looking for in a game like this. So I'll give it a C+. It's adequate. The aesthetics, however, are one of the strengths of the game. And maybe you saw it as hopefully the video did justice, but the quality of the tiles, the look of the tiles in particular, they really pop off the board when you set this game up. There's something visually appealing and alluring about the game. The player boards are okay, but it's really about the tiles. The tactile nature of the game and the visual aesthetic is one of the strengths of this game and the entire family of games. I'll give the aesthetics an A. As far as replayability, this is one of the games, this along with the other two I'll be reviewing the next couple weeks. These make it to our table for family game nights semi-regularly. With others in my gaming group, back when we were allowed to gather around the table, this was one on our short list of games as well. We even played this virtually. You can play this virtually. If each of you has the game, you can sort of set it up and play online. We've done that. So there is a lot of replayability to this game because each game is going to be unique. Obviously, the tiles available each time you play are going to be different. There's sort of a different feel whether you're playing 2, 3, or 4 player. And it plays well at all player counts. I prefer it with 4 player, but it does play well 2 or 3. If you want to get really wild, we even tried this, taking 2 games and combining it and playing 6 or 8 player. It's a little intense, but there is a lot of replayability, a lot of mileage with this game and the whole series of games. Obviously, I've got all 3 in my collection because they all hit the table semi-regularly. So the replayability for this, I'll give it a solid B+. The game length on the box, it says it's 30 to 45 minutes long, which is accurate. Obviously, if you're playing 2 player, it's going to be a little quicker, 4 player, a little longer. But the reality is, I don't think I've ever had a game of this where from taking it out of the box, playing it, and packing it back up was more than an hour. It does flow pretty well. It keeps moving as other players are taking their turn. You see what's happening. You can be thinking about your turn. And so I think the game length and the game flow is good. I wouldn't want this game to be much shorter. Because you want to sort of get into it and develop your strategy and the flow on your board. But if it lingered any longer than an hour, I think it could drag a little bit. The reality is it's just the right length so you can play this game, once, twice, maybe 3 times in an evening, or combine it with some others in the Azul family. And so the game length is appropriate for me. I give it an A. The ease of play, it says 8+ on the box, 8 years old plus. And I've had this game since my kids were around that age, and they've got a handle on it early and still enjoy playing this one. Again, it's a nice strategy game because it's easy enough to learn. But as you play a few times, you'll develop some more strategy. Not only strategy on how you're playing your own game, but how you're looking at the other players and what they're doing as well. But as far as ease of play, you can sit down, you can teach this game easily. And so this is a great family game. If you've got children and you want to teach them sort of some critical thinking and strategic learning, this is a good one. So I'll give the ease of play an A. Tactics and strategy, as I mentioned already. For a game that's easy to play and easy to learn, there's a significant amount of depth, but it's not overwhelming. It's not a real brain buster, but it's not mindless easy either. As you're playing, again, what I love about games of this nature is, yes, I'm doing my own thing on my own player board. Nobody else can take anything off my player board or hinder me that way, but the choices I make can affect the other players. And so you got to keep one eye on your board on what you're doing, what you're developing, thinking ahead a couple turns, what you want to do. But you're also keeping one eye on those at the table as well, specifically the players going immediately after you, not making it easy for them to achieve their goals and their plans. So there's a little bit of take that, just forcing players to take something that's not their optimal strategy. And so there's a significant amount of tactics and strategy. It's not the most strategic game on my shelf, but for a game that's 8+, 30 to 45 minutes, it's got some good meat, some good depth to it. So I'll give the tactics and strategy a B+ for Azul. So all in all, the bottom line, Azul is an easy to learn, aesthetically pleasing abstract strategy game that the whole family can enjoy time and time again, and I'll give it a final score of B+. So that's the first of the 3 Azul games. Thank you so much for being with me today on this Tabletop Tabletop Tuesday. Hey, why don't you come back next week and the week after, and I'll walk through the other 2 games in the Azul family. If you've got another game maybe you see on my shelf here that you'd like me to review, or another game that that's perked your interest, let me know in the chat. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, you're welcome to do that, and like and share this video. And I hope you can make it back next week for another Tabletop Tuesday video. Of course, at Tripp Advisor, I also do some Film Friday film reviews, as well as Theology Thursday, theology conversations occasionally as well. So I'm Jason Tripp. This is Tripp Advisor. Thanks so much for being with me today, and game on.